going to talk about now the masal of the Maamorim. We're starting with the Maamorim, Pasach Eiliyahu and Baruch Hashem Tashim Tesvav. So what I'll try to do in these few minutes is address shilas that came in, and including, but not limited to, what exactly we're doing for a month and a half, 2 months with two Maamorim, and all the hisafis here, what's the seder. So try to give some background to the Maamorim and the Hemshech Bichlal, and a derech, how to go through these Maamorim, and Be'ez Hashem over the next few weeks should be a davar hashalim. So just for a few minutes, so the Maamorim, Pasach Eiliyahu and Baruch Hashem are Abbtzan part of a longer Hemshech, which the other Maamorim are brought here in the back of the Kovetz. It's the Hemshech of Chayref, the winter of Tafshin Tesvav. When you look in the Maamorim of the earlier years, I don't know if you can manage to say these words, but Be'etzem, in a way, it's almost the Rebbe's first Hemshech. And what I mean by that is that even before Tafshin Tesvav, obviously you have Hemshechim, right? The first Maamorim that Rebbe said, Basi Lagani, Be'etzem had a Hemshech tet. Basi Lagani Tafshin Yud Aleph was on Wednesday. And then 3 days later, the Rebbe said a Maamorim Sheves Bagani. But all the Hemshechim of the early years were like that. A Maamorim that was said on Yom Tiv or Yom Depagra, and a follow-up Maamorim the following Shabbos. So Basi Lagani, Yesheves Bagani. V'nacha Yudalid, and then followed by, what's the next Maamorim there? Al Shleisha Dvarim. Right, so usually, I believe the most that there is 2 Maamorim, and they're usually not even a week apart, they're less than a week apart. It's a Yom Tiv, in the middle of the week, and Shabbos following up. Which the Chatchila, the Shabbos Fabrengens, after a Yom Depagra or Yom Tiv, were sort of a Shlama to the Yom Tiv Fabrengens. So it was one Maamorim. A Hemshech, as the Rebbeim, the Rebbe would always say that it starts by the Rebbe Marash, and obviously, but the Rebbe Rashab had the long Hemshechim. This Inyan of Hemshechim of for a few Chadashim, cooking in one Inyan in Maamorim. So Be'etzem, the first one is Pasach Eiliyahu, which Be'etzem doesn't start by Pasach Eiliyahu. It starts, the first Maamorim is Simchas Torah, B'yem Hashmini Atzeres. That's the first Maamorim. The last Maamorim brought over here is Mevarchim Achei Shvat. So we're talking about Be'etzem 3 months, from the end of Tishrei till the end of Tevis. Over 3 months, 5 Maamorim. There was one Maamorim in the middle that wasn't part of the Hemshech, and that's not put in here. But Be'etzem the 5 Maamorim, this Hemshech. From these 5 Maamorim, 2 of the Maamorim are Mugeh, Pasach Eiliyahu and Baruch Hashem. Now, the Hemshech is even clearly about the Sugya of Das Elyon and Das Tachtin. Now, Das Elyon and Das Tachtin are a great Sugya in Chassidus. And in these Maamorim, the Rebbe is Mechadish, Chidushim Nifloim, in the Sugya of Das Elyon and Das Tachtin. And to understand what we're trying to do over here, what we're trying to do with these Maamorim, I want to talk about Bechlal, the Indian of Melukit, the Rebbe's Maamorim Bechlal, and Melukit Befrat, and the Vitzu Lernin. So, even clearly, the Rebbe's Maamorim, right, anyone that, I'm sure everyone here has learned the Rebbe's Maamorim, and Mugeh, and Dulti Mugeh, the Rebbe's Maamorim, even clearly, are very, very much bekitzer. In a way, as the Rebbeim, every doyer, the Rebbeim would be Meirich in Chassidus, right? The Maamorim would be, obviously, from the Alter Rebbe to the Mittel Rebbe, from Chachma to Bina, and then in the later doyers, the Rebbe Rashab, the Friedrich Rebbe, the Maamorim are very much Barichas and Bebiur. The Rebbe, so in the Sichis you had that long biur, but in the Maamorim, in a way, it was farkert. The Rebbe's Maamorim, we can call are very bekitzer. That's even the Maamorim, the way the Rebbe said them, biyachas to the earlier Rebbe. But the Mugeh Maamorim are even more bekitzer. The Mugeh Maamorim, everything is very, very bekitzer. And every sif, and in a way, almost every line, there's a ribu inyanim here. So an Inyan that, in a Maimer that it's meyusad on from a previous Rebbe, is mamish a few pages or a few Maamorim, and the Rebbe's Maimer can mamish be in a few lines. Why? Because the word of the Rebbe's Maimer, you see this in many Maamorim, and in a way you could say that these Maamorim, Pasach Eiliyahu, Baruch Hashem, are somewhat representative of Melukit Bichlal. The Rebbe's Maamorim do a few things. Number one, they're misakim, sugyas and chassidus. So you can have one Maamorim, it's misakim, a few sugyas, very, very bekitzer and meduyik, very concise. Number two, they give hagdaris. Right, so you have, not only it takes many pages of chassidus and brings it into 1 page or a few lines, it will be magdir things, very, very clear definitions to things that even after you learn a few Maamorim in Ayin Beis and Samach Vav, as the Mashal would negate to this Maimer, but if someone would ask you, give a Hagdara to this topic, give a Hagdara, the Mashal brought in this Maimer, then you have Ratzin, give a Hagdara to Ratzin, give a Hagdara to Chaymer and Surah, you might be a bit lost, and the Rebbe's Maamorim will have in a few lines, a very clear Hagdara. That's number 2. So there's Kitzer, Sikum, Hagdara, and then the third thing, maybe the biggest Chiddush, you could say in the Rebbe's Maamorim, is this Nekudah of Chiddush. Then the Rebbe's Maamorim, there's major Chiddushim in Inyanim in Chassidus, meaning you have Sugyas in Chassidus that are brought by all the Rebbeim, and obviously each Rebbe was Moisif and Mechadish and explaining things differently, but even clearly there's a certain Mahalach, the general Mahalach that you see in Chassidus Bichlal. And the Rebbe, it could be in one Maimer, it could be in a few Maamorim, the Rebbe in a Maimer is Mechadish in the Sugya, a totally new Mahalach, a new Havana in the ganze Sugya, that you possibly don't see before. But because everything's written so bekitzer, so sai the Havanas Hadvarim and sai the Hagdaras Hadvarim, and maybe most importantly the Chiddush sometimes gets lost because what was said before, what's the Chiddush, man nishtane, what are we actually trying to accomplish here? Uvemela, so you know, people learn the Rebbe's Maamorim, you can learn the Rebbe's Maamorim can learn it very quickly. It's a minig. You get up on Shabbos and you can't down on Shabbos before learning a Maimer. So you find the Maimer, you finish the Maimer somehow in an hour. And the Rebbe's Maamorim, especially the Mugadik Maamorim, they read very well. They read very easy, but not necessarily versteht the ganze Inyan. So another reifin is that you listen to Shiurim. So there's Shiurim on the Maimer, and it's always a davar mevurech to listen to Shiurim. And the Shiurim, so you'll have a background brought, and the Magachir will find that Kudas Chiddush and also be Mevarit, etc., etc. And there's a Ribi Shiurim available, and they give out, and in the drive there's all these Shiurim. But what we're trying to do over here is something is a shtikla under a kav. Or betzem, learn the Maimer yourself. Which sof that's the Indian from Limud Chassidus, and especially Limud Chassidus Chabad, there's ein eigene, that to learn the Maimer with the background needed. So what we have over here is there's the 2 Maamorim, Pasach Eliyahu and Baruch Shas and the 2 Mugadik Maamorim. Then in the back there are the other 3 Maamorim, the Bilti Mugah, the first 2 Maamorim, the Hemshich, which are from Simchas Torah and Shabbos Bereishis. Then there's the 2 Mugadik Maamorim, and then the final Maimer, which is Parshas Ve'era, Tavshin Tesvav. Then in the middle you have here some Maamorim from Samach Vav and Ayin Beis. These Maamorim Samach Vav and Ayin Beis, the Samach Vav Maamorim are going to get to both Maamorim, especially Pasach Eliyahu. And then the Maimer from Ayin Beis is bigger going to get to the second half of the first half of Baruch Shasa Nisim. Besides for that, I believe here in the back there are a few pages, a list of Maamorim Mekoimis that take you through the Maimer, first general Maamorim Mekoimis to the Sugya, and then different Maamorim Mekoimis negate to different sifim in the Sugya, in the Maamorim, explain topics. You have Derech Meil, Derech Islabshus, Savos and Chayus, Chemer Tzura, Rotzin, Yechoilis, etc., etc. And then the second Maimer is the V'Pnimis, the V'Kutzoyin, Chachma Bina, things that are Moisef beer in these inyan. Now, Bachram asked how to learn and which Seder to learn. So I would say, even Kloli, I think there's now, Bez Hashem, we're learning this till Yutis Kislev. I would say that there's 2 Mahalchim. Either start with Samach, learn the Samach Vav Maamorim first, and then go to these Maamorim, and this is not either or. You can also do both. Or do the first 2 Maamorim of Tavshin Tesvav. So that way you learn the Hemshech Ala Seder. The Maimer of the 2 Maamorim of Samach Vav, which are both from Parshas Parba Chukoyis, one from Samach Vav, one from Samach Zayin. So the 2 Maamorim are negate to the Klolos, the entire Chelek brought from Samach Vav and Samach Zayin are negate to the Maamorim here. They explain the Sug of Das Oni Das Tachnas. We'll get to in a few minutes. The Maamorim of Tavshin Tesvav, so they're connected to this Sugya, obviously, and there's a build up. But there's a lot of in the Maamorim that are shtickle. They're not directly related to understanding Pasach Eliyahu Baruch Shas Nisim, and you might get lost in that a bit. So if you want to get straight to the Maimer, I would say Be'ikir, the first in Simchas Torah Maimer, the first 2 Sifim, and in the Bereishis Maimer, weiter, the first 2 Sifim. Betzim, the first 2 Sifim of both Maamorim are in a way a sikum of the Maamorim in Tafresh Samach Vav. the sugi that's only das tachtin, and then you can get the pasuk Eliyahu. But if you have the time, you can do the first two Maamorim, more legirsa, of the hemshech tesvav, and then go to the mugdik Maamorim, then adrabah. So that way you learn the sugya, the hemshech ala seder. Now, when you get to the Maamorim pasuk le'abar shas nisim, so the sugya is das only das tachtin, right? It's both in klali the sugya gate azay. We know there's das only and das tachtin, which Pasha translated. There's two perspectives. So a higher perspective, a lower perspective. There's a perspective from above and there's a perspective from below. Now, where are these das only and das tachtin? So this chassidus said Barich is that there are a few ways to look at it. On a pashta level, das elyon is wie the Eibishter cooked the zachin. Das tachtin is the way we look at things. And what's the difference between das elyon and das tachtin? So chassidus says like this: in das elyon is l'maylo yesh u'lamata ayin. In das tachtin, lamata yesh u'lamaylo ayin. Yesh means what's a mitzias? What's a true mitzias? What's the given mitzias? What's the pashta mitzias? So lamaylo, it's not the Eibishter, it's not the likus. So lamaylo yesh, ruchnius, a likus, Eibishter. That's the yesh amiti. Everything else is ayin, which means doesn't really. Now, okay, we'll get in a moment what exactly ayin means, but even on this very simple level, that's not the true mitzias. Mashenkin by us, the oilmes b'pshittus and likus b'yischachus. By us, the simple reality, the accepted reality, the intuitive reality that we have is l'matza yesh, the reality we live in. U'lamayla ayin, that it's ayin. It's not really there. We have to make it exist. We have to think about it and bring it into our frame of reference, and frame of existence. But then Chassidus brings the pasuk that says, "Kel deis havaya." And Chassidus learns what's the pshat kel deis havaya. Kel deis havaya is that by the Eibishter in kel deis havaya, even havaya, even the Eibishter himself is kel deis. The Eibishter is an Eibishter of deis, of two opinions, meaning that these two deis, it's not just Elyon and Tachtin, our opinion and our perspective and his perspective, but he himself has two perspectives. The Eibishter has dasa, and the Eibishter has das tachtin. And then Chassidus goes weiter and says, just like the Eibishter has 2 days, so we are a reflection of the Eibishter, so we also have 2 days. Right? So there's two inyanim in the Avodah Sa'adam, which connect to Yichud Tata and Yichud Ilah. Yir Tata, Yir Ilah, 2 ways the way a Yid can connect to the Eibishter. The Rebbe has a Meir Dikavart, in one of the Hadranim, Al Rambam, the later years, from when the Rebbe started the kind of limit the Rambam, so there was a hadron every year. Before that, there was 1 or 2 hadronim before, but from Mimdal and Non, Mimhei, there was a hadron every year. And Kemat every year, the Rebbe would speak about the first 2 halachas in Rambam. Zamud Leida Sheyesh Matzir Rishon, and then the second halacha is Vimyal Alada Shoinei Matzir. And the Rebbe would always ask the Shaila, Vimyal Alada Shoinei Matzir. And the question was always in different ways, but sometimes it was, is it shaykh that a yid would think any matzah? Was part of Shvar does. Or the question is, im yala ladas? This is an aliyah bedas. It's the biggest tipshus. I can think ain't shueni matzah. There's no ebish there. Right? So many different shaylas and many different biyorim. One of the adranim, the Rebbe said Amer Dikavart, that there can be a yid that learns the first halacha in Rambam. That there is an ebish there. The Yisrael says, "Leida sheyesh matzir rishon v'mamsi kol nimtza." Right? The ebish creates everything. And yet, after and Kol Nimtzoi Mishmayim V'Aretz V'Chol Ma Shebeneim comes from him, everything is totally in the Eibishter. He knows Halacha Aleph. He learns Halacha Aleph. Maybe he even learns with all the Hadranim and all the Sichis, all the Biyurim that are in Halacha Aleph. And even after he finishes Halacha Aleph, he comes to Halacha Beis. He's still in a state of Im Yala Ladas Shu'enei Motzi. He still thinks not Im Yala Ladas that he forgets Halacha Aleph and now he might think Enei Motzi. No. He knows Halacha Aleph and still Yala Das Shuhu Einei Matzui. Why? Because the Eibishter he has, his relationship with the Eibishter that he has from Halacha Aleph is an Eibishter that's Mamsi Kol Nimtza. An Eibishter that the entire world is dependent on the Eibishter. Meaning he sees the Eibishter through the world. So the world exists. Through his acceptance of the world's reality, how can the world be here? There's an Eibishter. So his relationship to the Eibishter is only through the world. But Yal Dashu Einei Matzui. But is the Eibishter Matzui? Is the Eibishter a true and inherent existence? Something that's pashut by him, just like we know that there's a table here, that the sky is blue. No, Yal Dashu Einei Matzui. He knows Halacha Aleph and still Yal Dashu Einei Matzui. Comes Halacha Beis and says, you have to elevate You have to grow up, and from Das Tachtin move on to Das Elyon. Right? So that's Das Elyon in a person's reality. But it starts with the Eibishter, that the Eibishter has 2 days, Das Elyon, Das Tachtin. Now, where are Das Elyon, Das Tachtin? So this is Chassidus Iberal Seretzich, that Be'etzem, they exist in different dargas and Elikus. Right? So you'll see this in Samach Vav, and you'll see this in the earlier Maamorim in Tavshin Tesvav, where we discuss Das Tachtin in Biyah, Das Elyon Atzilus, Das Tachtin in Atzilus, Das Elyon higher than Atzilus. In the Kav, in Chutzenis HaKav, in Pnimis HaKav, we discuss different ways of how do we see that both of these days exist in Elikus, but they're on different levels. And comes Chassidus and says that even though we say Das Elyon and Das Tachtin, 2 different perspectives, so Boifin Klali, okay, so if there's 2 perspectives, which perspective is right? Comes Chassidus and says, Shtei Adayas Heim Emes. Both days are true. Right? Obviously, if it exists in Elikus, then both days have to be true. There's no level in Elikus. Chas v'sholom, it's not Emes. Shtei Adayas Heim Emes. But Chassidus goes even deeper and says that even if when we understand Das Elyon, Das Elyon is the Eibishter's perspective, Das Tachtin is our perspective, even then we say Shtei Adayas Heim Emes. The fact that the Eibishter makes us see things Momato L'maylo, that itself has a truth to it, but that's not so much brought in this sugya, it's brought in other Maamorim. Across the board, Shtei Adayas Heim Emes. So this is the Bechlal, the Sprach brought in Chassidus, Shtei Adayas Heim Emes. In our Maamorim, the Rebbe basically goes in this kav of Shtei Adayas Heim Emes, but the way the Rebbe learns Shtei Adayas Heim Emes is very different and very mechudish b'yachas to the way it's learned Bechlal in Chassidus Shtei Adayas Heim Emes. Because even after Chassidus says that Shtei Adayas Heim Emes, Chassidus comes and says, and this you see in the second Maimer in Samach Vav, this is from Im Chukosei Telechu Samach Zayin, Shtei Adayas Heim Emes, but in Emes there's different levels of Emes. There's Sfas Emes, there's Emes, and Emes Lamite, right? We know this from time. Sfas Emes, Emes Lamite. So there's different layers in Emes. So even Klali, so Chassidus comes and says like this: Das Tachtin is Sfas Emes, Das Elyon is Emes. Something said Retzich Afilu the of Emes Lamite exists in Das Elyon. Usually Emes Lamite is higher than Das Elyon. So there's different layers of Emes. So is it all true? Yeah, but there are layers and levels to this truth. Because ultimately, Das Elyon comes from a higher level in Elikus. What are these how do these 2 levels work in Elikus? What does it mean? Right? How could Elikus say Lamata Yesh or Lamayla Ai? Made by us, Lamata Olam Haza is a reality that we live with every day, and Elikus is sort of ayin. It's out there, right? It's not really relevant or part of our life. It's not something that we can understand. But how do we say Lamata Yesh Lamayla Ai in Elikus? So first of all, so Bezeh Gufe, right? So soon I'm going to get to the Chiddush here in the Maamorim of what's the Pshat Shtei Adayas Heim Emes. I'm going to go back for a minute and say, okay, what is this Lamayla Yesh, Lamata Ayin, and Lamata Yesh, Lamayla Ayin, and Elikus? So Chassidus says like this: the Be'etzem, in whenever anything that exists in this world, where you have one existence and it turns into a different existence. So it speaks the mashal about there's the koyach ha'ilada, right? So there's the parent and then there's the child. There's the garin, there's the seed that's put into the ground, and then there's the thing that grows, there's the fruit that grows, etc. So whenever one mitzias turns into another mitzias, so between yesh and a yesh, there has to be an ayin be'emtza. This is it's a klal across the board. Of course, in Seder Shtalshus, but you see this in Elam Hazeh, right? Whenever from one mitzias to another mitzias, you can't just evolve. Evolution, Ilav only exists where it's one reality that just semi-evolving, right? Slight shifts and changes in its surah. But when you're actually changing the choimer of a thing, the etzem mitzias of azach, there's an ayin be'emtza, meaning the first mitzias has to cease to exist, and then the new mitzias can exist. So yeah, between yesh and yesh, there's ayin be'emtza. So when we say that in Elikus that l'mayla yesh l'mata ayin, l'mata yesh l'mayla ayin, so we say like this: that there's a yesh l'mayla, that's the yesh ha'amiti, that's the Eibishter, that's Atmos Simchos. There's the yesh l'mata, that's the yesh ha'nivra, our existence. And then there's the ayin be'emtza. What's the ayin be'emtza? So the ayin be'emtza is everything in between Atzmos, yesh ha'amiti, and Elam Hazeh, yesh ha'nivra. There's ayin be'emtza. All those levels of oyer, all of Seder Ishtalshus, all the spheres, it's all ayin. Now, so the shaila is, which yesh are we looking at? So if we learn it that way, there's one ayin in the middle, And then there's, okay, so which yesh are we starting from? Are we starting from the yesh ha'amiti, from atzmos, and then the ayin, and from there you go into the oir, and everything that comes after that, and then the world that's created, everything else it comes after the yesh. Or the starting point is olam hazeh, the yesh ha'nivra, and then there's the ayin that's above it, the ayin which is the chayis aleki, the oir, all the oiris l'mayla. Now, then comes and says, really, it's not yesh ayin yesh, it's yesh ayin ayin yesh. The ayin is split into two. The ayin is split into two. Now, meaning, ayin includes all the levels of ishtalshlus, all the levels of the oir chayis aleki. Somewhere in the middle of Seder Ishtalshlus, there's a split, and then we have ayin and ayin. Where is that split? That in Chassidus is a ganze sugya, especially in the Hemshich, Yud Tafshin Yud Aleph, which is the Hemshich that came was printed from Friedrich Rebbe from Tafshin Tzadik Dal. The Rebbe printed after the Stalkos in the Chayr of Tafshin Yud Aleph from Rosh Hashanah till the Siyam Amiras Kaddish. That's almost till Yud Shvat. That was the Hemshich the Rebbe gave out from Tafshin Tzadik Dalit, which is connected to this hemshech, because this hemshech of Tafrishin Tesvav, even Klali, is miyosid. The general yisoid for this hemshech is the hemshech from hemshech ayin beis, Tishrei Tafrish ayin vav. There kitchen a few Maamorim. The Friedrich Rebbe had a hemshech Tafrish Tzadik Dalet, printed Tafshin Yud Aleph, that's an arichus based off the hemshech from Tafrish ayin vav. But that hemshech was cut off in the middle. It was a whole story. The Friedrich Rebbe was saying the deepest. Tafrish Tzadik Dalet, he was in Poland. It was very, very deep hemshech. It was gekum mitainis as the Ilum versteht nicht what's going on. So the hemshech was literally cut off in middle, and the cutoff point in our hemshech is really, if you look over here in the Maimer of Simchas Torah, towards the end of Sif Gimel, some of the first Maimers where the hemshech of the Friedrich Rebbe cuts off. Right, so the Friedrich Rebbe's hemshech is a long, 50 pages, maybe even more. And that's just the first few pages of the Hemshech of the Rebbe over here. It speaks about the three levels of Bittul of Oyer and stops there and doesn't get to the next level. That's Maimer HaMoske. Balkoponim said there in the Friedrich Rebbe speaks about Riches, this Inyan of the three, of where is the cutoff point between Yesh, the Ayin, the higher Ayin and the lower Ayin, which in Chassidus vernacular is the Ayin of the Yesh HaAmiti and the Ayin of the Yesh HaNivra. So Yesh, Ayin, this Yesh is associated with the higher, this Ayin is associated with the higher Yesh. Then there's the ayin of Yesh HaNivra, which is associated with the lower Yesh. Is the cutoff point the Tzimtzum? Is it by Etzilis? Whatever. There's different ways of understanding where the two. But the point is that we split the ayin into two, and the first ayin is connected to the first Yesh, and the second ayin is connected to the lower Yesh. Why is this ayin? Why are these levels more connected to Atzmos, and this level connected to Olam Hazet Yesh HaNivra? And so that's in the Vart. And this will also explain how do we say in Elikus, how could there be a level in Elikus, a day in Elikus, that Lamata Yesh or Lamayla Ayin? It sounds absurd. The Eibush there sees the world as a Metzias and himself as a non-existence. Right? Nerva then, the difference of the higher Ayin, the lower Ayin, the higher Ayin is a level in Oyer that's totally Davuk to the Moyer, connected to the Eibush there himself, and its whole Metzias is Bittul to the Eibishter, to Atzmos. Right? Yeah, if it's the oir legalos Atzmosei, if it's the oir hakol b'moyer, whichever level we speak of, we're talking about an oir that its home mitzias is ayin, and so in that case, what does ayin mean? So ayin of the yesh amiti and the word ayin of yesh hanivra mean two different things. The ayin of yesh amiti, why is it called ayin? Because of its bittul. It's bittul to the yesh amiti. That's the higher level of ayin. The lower level of ayin, the ayin of Yesh HaNivra, why is that called ayin? That's called ayin because it is, you can't say because, you say it's totally bottled to the Yesh HaNivra, the Likus is bottled to the Yesh HaNivra. The Yesh HaNivra exists only because the early key is in it, the Chayis is the key is in it. So here we say that why is ayin called ayin? Here Chassidus brings a few biurim. One biur is ayin miloshin loy davar, or ayin that it's einei musig. The word ayin here means ayin biyachas to the yesh hanivra. it's non-existent. It's a different form of existence than the Yesh HaNivra. It's not Gashmi. And it's not understood in the world of Gashmi. Meaning, it's ayin biyachas to us. It doesn't really exist in our frame of reference and of existence. Why does Elikus see things? If it's only ayin because we see, because it doesn't make sense to us, we don't understand it. So why does Elikus itself? Why is it called ayin in Elikus? And that's spoken about in the Maamorim, because in that level of Elikus, the whole toichin of those levels in Elikus is to mechaya olam hazeh. It's keilu. We can say tuffle, but his whole inyan, why is there Sfiras HaMalchus? Why is there the Chayes that comes into this world in order to give this world existence? So in a way, it comes after this world. Because there's a world, therefore there's that level of Chayes. Fine, and that's explained here in the Maamorim. So L'mayla Yesh L'mata Ayin, and L'mata Yesh L'mayla Ayin, the 2 days in Elikus. Now, now these 2 days are true because there's different levels, as I said. There's the Yesh and the Ayin, the higher Ayin, which is higher levels in Elikus, and then there's the Ayin of below, the ayin of Yesh HaNivra, and then the Yesh HaNivra, which is down here. They're both emes because they're both in Elikus. In these Maamorim, the Rebbe basically comes and explains that the 2 levels are emes, it's not 2 layers of emes and 2 different dargis. This that there's Das Elyon, Das Tachtin, where does it come from? It's both expressions of Ein Sof. There's one way of looking at it, this is that Tzilis and higher than Tzilis, before this and after it. So here we're saying, Das Elyon, Das Tachtin are both expressions of Ein Sof. That's what it is. Ein Sof expresses himself in 2 different ways. So, Lefiza Kumt, I don't say it clearly, but Lefiza Kumt, it's not 2 different layers of emes. Here, with the way the Rebbe learns that it's Shtei Deis Im emes, they're both on equal footing. They're both emes lamiti, they're both expressions of Ein Sof. The Rebbe goes noch different, not only both expressions of Ein Sof, in Ein Sof Fart, there's 2 kavim. So the Rebbe goes deeper. That they're betzim both expressions of Yecholos HaAtzmos. Yecholos HaAtzmos, this is the last sif pasach Eliyahu and a bit in the next mimer. In Yecholos HaAtzmos, when we said that Eibishter has Yecholos Lahoyer and Shaloi Lahoyer, it's not 2 different expressions. Yecholos means he's Kol Yochel, he can do anything. Included in that is Lahoyer, Shaloi Lahoyer, and a billion other things. So there's one Nekud of Yecholos. So mitzad that Nekud, these 2 days are be'etzim one. And what does that mean practically? So here are the 2 Maamorim, Pasach Eliyahu and the Baruch Shasa Nisim. Pasach Eliyahu tries to bring out the point that Das Tachtin is just like Das Elyon. Just like Das Elyon, we understand it to be Koidem HaTzimtzum, an expression of Ein Sof. It's the truth of the Eibishter, the way the Eibishter is for himself, and not the way the Eibishter relates to this world. Das Tachtin as well, which seemingly is the way the Eibishter relates to this world and is already after a tzimtzum, and it's not the Eibishter the way he is for himself. Das Tachtin as well, because it's Mushrish and Ein Sof, Das Tachtin as well is an expression of the Eibishter the way he is for himself without shaychus to this world. As explained in this mind. Comes the Rebbe in the second mind, Baruch Shasa Nisim, and says the Farkerta Vart, which in a way is even a bigger chiddush. The Chayra, what's the big chiddush here? That even Das Tachtin is like Das Elyon. Comes the Rebbe in the second mimer and says, what we're going to do now is we're going to revisit Das Elyon. The first mimer, the Rebbe revisits Das Tachtin. In the second mimer, the Rebbe revisits Das Elyon. Then now we'll understand Das Elyon. If in the first mimer it seemed we're trying to get Das Tachtin to the same level as Das Elyon, now we're saying no. It's a totally new avana in what Das Tachtin is and Das Elyon is. Das Elyon is because the Eibishter wants it, just like Das Tachtin is an expression of Ein Sof. The Eibishter wants to express himself in a way of Das Tachtin. In the second manner, we say that Das Elyon as well, the Eibishter wants to express himself in a way of Das Elyon. The Nafkeminis, now the way that Rebbe does this, and this you see in these Maamorim, this is the style in the look it, well, I'll finish in 2 minutes, is that the way that, okay, you got the Vart, move on. The way that Rebbe gets to this Chiddush, which is the greatest Chiddush in Chassidus, there's many different sort of semi-sugyas here. There's the sugya Das Elyon, Das Tachtin. There's the sugya of Nes and Teva. Ishabas v'derech Meilin, Ishabas v'derech Slabshus. Only Sif Gimel. Come Sif Hey, Vav. You have the sugya of Ishabas and Chayas. Zayin, you have the sugya of Chaymer and Surah. Ches, Tes, the sugya of Rotzin and Dibur. And then the Rebbe brings together these many different sugyas and proves from the way these sugyas come together this new Havan and this new Mahal. And in the next Maimer, the Rebbe speaks, the first half of the Maimer is about Chochmah and Bina, the Kesher of Chochmah and Bina, and learning the sugya of Chochmah and Bina, how it connects to Das Elyon, Das Tachtin, according to different Maamorim, And through that, the Rebbe comes to this beer of a different Havana in Das Elyon. Then later in the Maimer, the Rebbe speaks about different Ifanim and Nissim. So very, very not much different in the Yonim, we come together in these Maamorim, but all to bring out this Nekudah, a new Havana in Das Tachlin, a new Havana in Das Elyon, that come from a deeper Havana in Shtei Deis Hememes. It's finished with the Indian, this whole Indian is a Shikul Yonah Diyema, the Shkacha Pratis. So that's in these Maamorim, the Rebbe said Tafshin Tezvav, the Rebbe gave out these two Maamorim in Tafshin Nun Aleph, in the winter. The Maamorim, in the winter of Tafshin Aleph, the Rebbe gave out Kam V'Kam Maamorim, Mekesher to the Sugya of Nissim, and Teva, and Das Elyon, Das Tachtin. And that's in the, it was clear, the Rebbe was giving it out, there was connection to the Matzav then, which was Melech Arvi, Miskarav, Melech Aram, that was Mamash right before the Gulf War started. Al Kadei Kach, the Maimer Baruch Shasa Nissim, Tafshin Tezvav, is meyusid on the Maimer, the Rebbe is invited the Maimer of Baruch Shasa Nissim Tafri Samach Daled. So here, the print, this is from the new Malukit, it doesn't finish off here. You look in the old Malukit, so it says there, the Yudis Kis Tafri Samach Daled, the Maimer Yotzel Lo'er, Yud Shvat, Tafshin Nun Aleph. The Maamorim Baruch Shas Nissim Tezvav, the Rebbe published it for Chanukah before the Maamorim Baruch Shas Nissim was ever printed. It was printed Eresh a month later, and the Rebbe gave it out to everybody. Yud Shvat was in the middle of the war. The Rebbe gave out the Maamorim Baruch Shas Nissim. That was one of the, right. The Rebbe was giving out Kuntreisim of Chassidus. The Rebbe gave out the Maamorim a month and a half later. When the Maamorim originally came out, it said Yud Kis Tafshin Samach Daled. Loy nitpas adain, or you have to find the original kuntris that was printed. It says it there, loy nitpas or nimtza b'tfus. So the Rebbe's Maamorim came out before the original Maamorim was ever printed, and the Maamorim Basha came out at that kufe. And so that's with this Indian, the Eivishter, by the Eivishter, Betzim Nes and Teva are all one, and therefore Nissim can mean a slavish in Teva, and Sai Nissim and Sai Teva are the feeder Tzoyne Yisparech the Ratzon of the Eivishter. As the Rebbe finishes the second Maamer, that the Bakasha is by the Eivishter, that Shasa Nissim is Manazeh, you see on page 19 in the Kuntris. Shvizman Zeh Basa Dakar, Yasak this work on Nissim Lashon Rabim, Kol Gam Nissim Dareno Nifloes, right? That came out in Nun Aleph. Shiur Bias Mishil Tzkenu, Gam Nissim Elu Yubizman Zeh Basa Dakar, Mamish Bias Mishil Tzkenu, B'Meher Rav Yomeinu Mamish. Upon Allah Havna Asachat Slacha, there's said that there's different shiurim available, and will be shiurim, but Beikir, we should learn through that. It's very Geshmak Hemshech, Tafshin Tezvav, and the Maamorim Samach Vav and Ayin Beis, and you see over here the Maamorim Kovetz, and Zayin B'Atzlacha Rabbah.